Hi folks, this is Don Meissner with the North Country Fishing Report. I talked to Jigger Jim this morning. Jigger Jim is on Black Lake. He works at the log cabin. His name Jigger is because his favorite way to fish is jigging. But first things first, I says, Jim, can you tell me about how the fishing is in Black Lake right now? He says, well, the bass are really hitting. Well, that's a lot of information. That's the trouble with trying to get information from other people, because this isn't the case with Jigger Jim, but they really don't give you that much that we can talk about. But Jim says, if you're a novice, you come to Black Lake. If you can't see, if you can't hear, if you can't do anything, you just use a SENKO. Now, a SENKO's a soft plastic worm. They became very famous. They seem to work better than a lot of other soft plastic worms because of the density of the material, the amount of salt they use, and people just love them. But he doesn't like them. And I said, Jim, tell me why, if you're not a novice, if you're up there in level of fishing experience, why would you want something else? He says, because fishing SENKOs, to me, he says, is boring. And as crazy as that might sound, because the SENKOs are phenomenal. You're going to catch fish. If you can't catch them on anything else, you're probably going to catch them with a SENKO. But it's a very slow way of fishing, which, don't get me wrong, I love to fish slow. Most people, they don't. In tournaments, they're running and gunning. That's what they do. They'll hit a place, not any fish, bam, they're gone at 60 miles an hour to another place. This is a whole different way of fishing. And to fish a SENKO, a plastic worm, you cast it out, it slowly sinks to the bottom. The fish see it going down. Then they sit there and they look, or they sit there. They're not sitting, they're treading water, whatever they're doing, and they're looking at it and looking at it. And it may take some time. And then all of a sudden you'll see your line start to move or twitch. To Jim, this is boring, boring, boring. He wants to use something like a jig or a crankbait where you're bringing it in and bam, you feel that jolt. And that's what energizes him. That's what keeps his heart beating. But it's important for you to know all this too, because actually, SENKOs are wonderful. The other aspect that we got into, though, is talking about the bass fishing or the fishing in general in Black Lake. And I said, Jim, tell me something. If anybody would know, because you're on that water, you're there in the store every day of your life, is Black Lake maintaining itself as the gem of all gems, the fishing lake that God created that is so spectacular, or is it declining a bit? And he says, I think it's declining a bit. And he says, this is why. He says, primarily, so many of the fishermen on Black Lake are coming from other states. This is their go-to lake to come. They bring the biggest ice chest or the biggest number of ice chests they can, and their goal is to fill those ice chests with fish and take them back to another state where they live. This isn't their lake. This is the lake they come to fill their ice chests. And that has a eventual effect on all the species in any body of water. And if somebody tells you differently, it's proven. Pressure affects a population. They either survive, adapt, or they go by the wayside. And I can remember years ago down in Lake Okeechobee that was so full of 10-pound largemouth bass. Now, we're going back 30 or 40 years, and it's a vast, vast lake. I've done several TV shows there, so I'm familiar with the lake. It's vast. It's huge. And the answer was, fishermen can't possibly hurt this lake. There's too much water. There's too many fish. Oh, honk the zonker sound right now, because not only did it, but it almost ruined the lake. And it's going to be the same any place. You put enough fishermen, you take enough fish out of a population. That population is natural. It's not a video game. That is natural beings that live there. And they can only take so much of this pressure. So, getting back to Black Lake, so many of the people, the size limit of bass on Black Lake is 15 inches. Now, is that a good decision? Because the bigger fish are stronger, they live longer, they're a better source of genetic survival for the new generations that come after them. We can go through these conversations a lot, but just understand, and Jim put it very well, he says it has to be a put and take type of fishery. You put back some of what you catch, and you take some of what you catch. That can lead to a healthy fishery, and it can maintain itself for years to come. Don't misunderstand me. Black Lake is still a gem. But there's so much pressure that of people not putting and taking, but taking, filling the ice chest, going home. And you don't know. Once those fish get back hundreds of miles away, you don't know how many of them are actually eaten or how many of them are thrown out. It's a spontaneous, short-term type of reward, take and reward that you have. It's mental, it's emotional. But in the long run, are these fish wasted, or are some of them wasted? I don't have the answer, but I suspect not all these fish actually come to a good end and are eaten by either family, friends, or whatever. Until next time, folks, this is Don Meissner with the North Country Fishing Report.